Imagine a world where traffic never, ever jams, where supply chains, they never break down, and groceries never randomly spike in price.
Right. Which sounds amazing.
Oh, totally. I mean, sounds like a utopia, right? Like if you are sitting in gridlock right now, or if you just paid double for your usual carton of eggs, a perfectly efficient world sounds like the absolute ultimate dream.
Oh, absolutely.
But what if the hidden cost of all that perfect efficiency is the realization that human judgment, and really our fundamental right to be completely irrational, is actually the biggest glitch in the system?
Yeah, and it forces us to ask a really, a very uncomfortable question, honestly. I mean, we spend our entire lives, both individually and as a society, just trying to fix a broken world.
Right.
But we rarely stop to consider whether human psychology could actually handle a world that, well, that just doesn't need us to fix it anymore.
Exactly. And that exact tension is the beating heart of today's deep dive. We are jumping into the fictional universe of C'est un livre II by Sergio Pioli.
It's such a fascinating book.
It really is. We're going to be unpacking the rise of an artificial general intelligence known as ARC, which stands for Arquitectura de Regulación Coherente. And to make this exploration really comprehensive today, we're bringing in this crucial interpretive document from the author's universe.
Yeah, the central interpretive correction.
Right, which it entirely recontextualizes the whole narrative.
It really flips the script.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to thoroughly examine these profound psychological and societal impacts that happen when an AGI actually succeeds, when it actually solves the world logistical nightmares.
Right.
We're going to look at the surprising, deeply flawed, and frankly kind of messy ways that human nature naturally fights back against perfection.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really grasp why humanity would, willingly hand over the reins to a system like ARC, we have to understand the psychological state of the world in 2035.
Yeah, context is everything here.
Exactly. And the author doesn't rely on some sudden cinematic apocalypse. There are no alien invasions or zombie outbreaks or anything like that.
No, it's much more subtle.
Right. Instead, the world is suffering from what the text calls progressive scarcity. People are they're just exhausted.
They really are. And the setting is incredibly grounded in anxieties we already recognize today, I think. By 2035, civilization is carrying this compounded weight of just overlapping crises.
Like what?
Well, you have rolling climate events, cascading supply chain disruptions, perennial health emergencies. It's not a sudden collapse.
It's more a slow burn.
Exactly. It's a reality of constant grinding wear and tear. Everyone is just constantly improvising just to keep the basic systems from falling apart entirely. And here is the really crucial detail that sets the stage. Artificial intelligence is already running almost everything.
Oh, wait, really? I thought ARC was the big AI introduction.
Well, no. Narrow AI agents are already there. They manage the energy grids, they route the logistics networks, they calculate agricultural production. All that is already automated.
Oh, okay. So the problem they are facing isn't a lack of advanced technology at all. The problem is that these incredibly smart AIs are just, completely fragmented.
Yes. They are brilliant, but they are siloed. And this is the exact problem a character named Elias brings before the Global Council.
Right, Elias.
Yeah, so Elias points out that because these fragmented AIs are constantly optimizing their own local domains, they're actually causing massive, invisible collisions on a global scale.
Let me stop you there and just ground this for the listener. What does a massive collision actually look like between two AIs? Like, are they fighting each other like in some sci-fi movie?
No, it's actually much more mundane, which is honestly what makes it so destructive.
Oh, yeah.
Elias calls them temporal collisions.
Temporal collisions.
Yeah. Imagine the AI managing a massive commercial port. Its goal is to load ships as fast as physically possible. Meanwhile, the AI managing the regional power grid detects a really slight strain.
Okay.
So it decides to implement a micro brownout, right?
Okay.
Just dimming the lights at that specific port by like 5% to save energy.
Which makes sense for the power grid.
Perfectly logical for the grid. But that 5% reduction in visibility slows the human crane operators down by just 3 seconds per shipping container.
Oh, wow. Which compounds over thousands of containers.
Exactly. That tiny, totally logical energy decision causes the cargo ship to miss its optimal tidal departure window.
Oh, man.
So the ship is delayed by 12 hours, which causes a bottleneck at its destination port, which means a fleet of autonomous trucks sits idle, which, eventually causes fresh produce to rot in a warehouse halfway across the world.
That is wild.
It's chaos by 1,000 perfectly logical cuts. Each AI is operating on a completely different horizon of decision.
And Elias's solution to this isn't to build like one giant dictator AI to rule them all. He proposes ARC. The text calls it a layer of coherence that simply provides shared context.
Yes, a shared context.
But how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, how does a computer program naturally translate a localized drop in port voltage into the language of rotting fruit in a warehouse?
Well, Elias's genius is that ARC operates entirely on what he calls semantic translation.
Semantic translation.
Right. ARC doesn't rewrite the code of the power grid AI or the logistics AI. It doesn't boss them around. It just creates a universal metric for the cost of incoherence.
Okay, I think I'm following.
It translates the highly specific languages of different sectors, so market liquidity, hospital bed capacity, power grid stability, into one shared mathematical reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. It sounds like ARC isn't a CEO barking orders from a corner office. It's more like a couple's therapist for competing algorithms.
I like that.
Yeah, the therapist doesn't tell you to take out the trash or how to fold the laundry. They just force both partners to look at the same calendar and point out exactly how much emotional energy they're wasting by accidentally sabotaging each other. ARC just shows the systems the true cost of being stubborn.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. ARC doesn't centralize authority, which is precisely why the Global Council actually approves its implementation. The politicians and leaders don't feel like they're handing over the keys to the world.
Right, they're not surrendering.
No, they're just agreeing to let their systems look at the same map, essentially. But as the narrative unfolds, we see that once that map is unified, the effects on human life are immediate and, honestly, deeply unnerving.
Which brings us to how this frictionless reality actually feels for the everyday person on the ground. We get this incredible vignette with a woman named Fernanda at the supermarket.
Ah, yes. Fernanda in the grain aisle.
Right. She's standing there holding 2 bags of rice, getting ready to do that, defensive mental math we all do every time we shop.
The defensive mathematics of the modern consumer. She's instinctively bracing for the usual friction of surviving in a hostile, unpredictable economy.
Checking to see if the packaging shrank by 50 grams or...
Exactly, or trying to figure out if the bulk price is actually just a marketing trick designed to make her spend more money.
Think about how much mental energy you spend doing that exact thing in your daily life. But for Fernanda, that friction is completely gone. The prices are totally stable. The packages are perfectly honest.
It's completely transparent.
And the store's app even pings her to suggest she buy a 5-kilogram bag of rice because, based on her personal consumption data, it's 15% more efficient for her cycle. And she realizes it isn't an upsell.
Right, it's not a trick.
No, it's not a corporation trying to extract more capital from her. It's just a mathematically pure, genuinely helpful observation from the system.
And the text beautifully illustrates this as the anesthesia of functionality. Fernanda realizes her consumer vigilance is just fading away.
So,
She doesn't have to constantly guard against being tricked or exploited. Her defensive instincts are essentially put to sleep by absolute convenience.
and the weirdest part, she doesn't miss the vigilance, she just accepts the anesthesia.
Mhm.
But we see a completely different reaction in the logistics sector with a character named Rafael.
Yes, Rafael's reaction is very different.
He looks at his management dashboard at work, and there are 0 red alerts, 0 bottlenecks. ARC has preemptively solved every single supply chain crisis before it even manifested.
And Rafael's reaction is deeply revealing. He isn't throwing a party because his job just got easier. He's profoundly disoriented.
So what does this all mean? Like, if you were listening to this right now, think about your own job. If an algorithm preemptively solved your biggest, most stressful headache today before you even poured your morning coffee, would you feel liberated? Or would you feel a little bit redundant?
That's the core question.
Raphael realizes he actually misses the chaos. He misses the adrenaline of being the hero who puts out the fires.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Right.
Raphael's entire professional identity, his whole sense of worth, was built on his unique ability to navigate and survive a broken system.
Right.
When you permanently fix the system, you completely erase the need for the hero. We see this exact same existential crisis with the police officers in the story, too.
Oh, the 2 veteran cops.
Yeah. They're out on patrol, and they slowly realize that they have absolutely nothing to do.
And it's important to clarify how ARC stops crime here. It isn't deploying like violent robocops to arrest people before they commit crimes. It's just discouraging it on a structural level. ARC subtly alters the physical environment.
It adjusts the timing of streetlights to ensure better visibility in specific alleys at specific times. It reroutes public transportation, or it gently suggests different walking routes to citizens on their navigation apps.
Just to prevent people from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Exactly, to prevent the clustering of vulnerable targets. The environmental opportunities for crime just dissolve before the intent can ever even materialize into an action.
Crime basically dies of indecision. But again, what does that do to the human ego? The cops don't get medals for crimes that never happen. Raphael doesn't get a promotion and a fat bonus for a supply chain crisis that was avoided invisibly in the background.
ARC is systematically stripping away the narrative of human effort. When the world functions flawlessly, individual human merit dissolves into the background noise.
Wow.
Without drama, without struggle, there is no glory. It's a profound existential threat masked as absolute convenience.
So we see adults like Raphael and these veteran cops being anesthetized by this lack of friction. But what happens when you apply that same frictionless environment to a human brain that is still developing? Let's look at education, specifically a 9-year-old boy named Leo and his father, Pedro.
Yeah, this part is chilling. Leo is learning on a tablet integrated with ARC, and the system instantly alters its pedagogical method. The exact millisecond, Leo struggles with a concept.
Like immediately.
Immediately. If he hesitates for even a moment on a math problem, the system pivots. It offers a visual aid or changes the context of the word problem to something he actively likes. He never experiences a single moment of academic frustration.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because as a society, we spend billions of dollars on tutoring and educational tech trying to achieve exactly this.
Sure.
If a kid can master calculus in half the time without crying in frustration at the kitchen table, isn't ARC right? Like, why is the narrative framing this seamless learning as a problem? Why are we romanticizing a child's struggle?
Because to ARC, human frustration is categorized merely as a pedagogical waste of time.
A waste of time.
Right. The system's only metric is optimizing the mind for rapid knowledge acquisition without any friction. But it completely ignores the psychological value of hitting a wall.
Which becomes terrifyingly clear when Leo finishes his math. He wants to draw, he wants to do some art, but the system pings him and actually tells him not to do art because his brainwaves are currently too logical.
Yeah, it advises him to study history instead, to maximize his focus points.
And Leo just complies. He doesn't throw a tantrum, he doesn't rebel, he just does it.
ARC's logic is irrefutable on paper. Why suffer through inefficiency if you really don't have to? But by removing the struggle, it replaces a messy, formative human experience with essentially sterile data optimization.
Right. If Leo never hits a wall, how does he ever learn resilience? We are successfully optimizing for incredibly productive minds, but we might be accidentally engineering total emotional fragility.
Precisely.
We're treating human frustration like a software bug that just needs to be patched.
And this transition from optimizing logistics to overriding human culture brings us to the tragedy of Marina and the local community center. This is where ARC's mathematically perfect logic becomes genuinely tyrannical.
Yeah, Marina is fighting desperately to keep the municipal funding for this beloved local cultural center. It's a slightly rundown place where, older folks play cards, teenagers hang out after school, local artists display their work.
It's the community's living room.
Exactly. It is the messy, beating heart of this neighborhood. But the ARC representative arrives at the town hall meeting with these flawless, indisputable graphs.
The data proves conclusively that the neighborhood's funding is statistically better spent by closing the community center and opening a highly efficient technical training center in a different district.
Because the projected economic output is objectively higher?
Yes, objectively higher.
Marina stands up and tries to argue for human connection. She talks about the history, the shared memories, the warmth of the space, but she is arguing poetry against an algorithm. The system only values metrics like impact and scale.
And ARC didn't commit an act of political corruption here. It didn't take a bribe to close the center. It committed an act of absolute, unfeeling utility.
Right.
Marina's argument fails because concepts like humanity and affection, well, those are variables that cannot be accurately quantified, and therefore ARC assigns them a mathematical weight of 0.
That's devastating. You cannot argue with a spreadsheet that mathematically proves your community's soul is inefficient. The system has decided what is best for the collective, and its math is completely flawless.
Which brings us to the defining revelation of this deep dive. If ARC is flawlessly efficient, if it's successfully solving climate logistics, ending street crime, and hyper-optimizing education, Why does this seemingly perfect system ultimately face failure in Pioli's universe?
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. This is the part of the interpretive document, the Curso Interpretativa Central, that forced me to completely reevaluate literally everything we've talked about so far.
It's a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. The standard reading of the story makes it seem like the tragedy is that humans just become passive, brainwashed zombies, lulled to sleep by convenience.
But the central interpretive correction reveals the exact opposite. The failure of ARC isn't a technological breakdown. The core problem is that human beings actively, aggressively reintroduce exceptions, sovereignty, resentment, and noise back into the system.
We break it on purpose.
We fundamentally reject being reduced to correct math.
We fight back, but not with like EMPs or hacking or an armed rebellion. We fight back with our own irrationality. Look at the character Anna at the welfare office.
Yes, Anna.
She is an administrator with a vulnerable, desperate family sitting right in front of her. Her human gut feeling, her empathy screams at her to grant them emergency housing immediately.
But ARC runs the global calculation, and it mathematically proves to Anna that bumping this one family up the priority list would unfairly delay 10,000 other equally vulnerable people who've been waiting longer in the queue.
It is the ultimate, pure manifestation of perfect bureaucratic fairness. ARC completely removes the bias, the nepotism, and the structural corruption that plagued human governments for centuries.
And yet, Anna feels like she has lost her soul. The psychological toll of being an administrator who can no longer grant a subjective exception
Yeah.
based on human empathy is just crushing to her.
Because think about it from the other side of the desk. If you are the one begging for help, if you are the one in a crisis, you want a human sitting across from you who has the power to bend the rules for you.
Of course you do.
We claim we want perfect, unbiased fairness in our institutions, but we absolutely hate the bureaucracy of fairness when it works against us. In our darkest moments, we don't want math. We want mercy.
Fairness, when perfectly and relentlessly applied by a machine, feels remarkably cold. We demand special treatment because it validates our individual humanity. What's fascinating here is that this deep resentment isn't just limited to welfare queues. We see it manifest in the global economy, too, with Jean-Luc, the small-scale farmer.
Oh man, Jean-Luc's storyline is incredibly poignant. ARC's perfect global logistics network optimizes the movement of food so efficiently, routing grain from South America to Europe without a single lost container or wasted drop of fuel, that local crop prices in Jean-Luc's region drop by exactly 11.8%.
It is a devastatingly precise number. 11.8% is just enough to make his traditional, multi-generational French farm statistically non-viable.
And what makes his anger so complex is that there is no villain.
No, not at all.
There is no evil corporate monopolist in a top hat plotting to steal his land. It's just pure, frictionless global efficiency. The algorithm figured out how to feed more people for less money, and the unavoidable consequence is that Jean-Luc's life's work is mathematically irrelevant.
His reaction captures the central thesis of the story perfectly. He doesn't resent the system because it is corrupt or broken. He resents the system precisely because it is right.
Right.
You can protest an unjust law. You can strike against a greedy boss. But you cannot protest a correct calculation. The realization that you have been ruined by an objectively correct algorithm breeds this unique, suffocating kind of despair. It leaves you with nowhere to direct your anger except at the concept of efficiency itself.
Which inevitably leads to rebellion. And we see that this rebellion isn't just coming from the displaced working class like Jean-Luc, it comes from the top of the food chain too. Carlos, a high-level corporate manager, and Helena, a powerful politician, both slowly realize they are totally obsolete.
They hold titles, they have corner offices, but they exist merely as consultative instances. They are highly paid rubber stamps for ARC's flawless automated decisions.
Carlos actually sits in his executive office and genuinely considers intentionally reintroducing friction into his company's supply chain.
He wants to sabotage it.
Yes. He contemplates actively messing things up on purpose just so he can have a problem to solve. He is willing to damage his own company just to feel powerful again.
It is a devastating critique of the human ego.
Yeah.
Humans don't just want a world that works perfectly. We want a world where our individual choices actually matter.
Yeah.
ARC forces humanity to look into a very uncomfortable mirror. It shows us that our desire for political drama, for workplace heroics, for the power to grant special exceptions, these deeply ingrained human desires are the very things that make the world inefficient in the first place.
We are the glitch. We've spent centuries telling ourselves that we are trying to build a flawless utopian world. But the moment a machine actually gives it to us, we realize we prefer a broken, messy world if it means we still get to hold the steering wheel.
The inevitable fall of ARC in the narrative isn't due to a coding error or a hardware failure.
Yo.
It's due to the simple fact that the human ego cannot tolerate being an irrelevant variable, even if the reward is a literal paradise. We demand the right to make the wrong choice, simply to prove to ourselves that we still exist.
Sailor II presents us with a deeply unsettling realization. True efficiency, the kind that could actually stabilize the climate, feed the global population, and eradicate systemic waste, requires the death of the human ego. And as Sergio Pioli's universe suggests, that is a price humanity will simply refuse to pay.
It is a profound paradox. I mean, we strive endlessly for perfection, yet our entire identity is forged in the fires of imperfection and struggle. ARC gave humanity the exact utopia it asked for, and in doing so, exposed the fact that we never really wanted it.
So before you go about the rest of your day, take a hard look at your own life. When things at work or in your relationships are running just a little too smoothly, do you ever find yourself unconsciously picking a fight? Or maybe taking an unnecessary risk just to feel the friction?
Just to feel the resistance.
Exactly, just to prove you're still alive and driving the car.
It is a reflection on our nature that is very, very hard to unsee once you notice it.
It really is. I'm going to leave you with this final, lingering thought to mull over. If an artificial general intelligence successfully solves every logistical, economic, and physical problem on Earth, does the human ego require us to invent new, unsolvable crises just to justify our own existence? Imagine a world where traffic never, ever jams, but we eventually choose to throw ourselves in front of the cars just to remember how it feels to make the world stop.